Hi everybody. I wanted to talk today about some of the values that can be found in being high maintenance during a time like the pandemic, or developing a high maintenance mentality as an approach to get through some of the challenges of lockdown and some of the challenges of the fear that might be present during a time like this when so much is unknown. I actually read a meme that a friend of mine posted on a social media outlet lately that talked about how fortunate, someone felt because they weren't a high maintenance woman moving into the pandemic. She didn't have to worry about her fake eyelashes or her makeup. And it actually made me stop and think I think being high maintenance would be a fantastic, a wonderful, a functional approach to actually navigating through the pandemic time period with grace and with finesse and in a way that's actually going to function to get you through it. Let you develop additional tools for dealing with some very challenging aspects that we're all certainly facing at this time. So I wanted to outline in this video a little bit about why I think that moving toward a more of a high maintenance mentality during this period can really serve you. The first reason is because you can acknowledge and put forth your needs. So we all have needs. Many of us in this society, in this culture, are taught to repress those needs and to put others' needs first, especially if you're a parent. That's something that you're told you should be doing at all times, especially if you're a mother. So have your needs. Stand in your needs, identify what they are, put them out there and say, I've got needs, right? Scream it from the rooftop.
What was that?
Depending on your circle that you feel safe being present in at this time, those needs can be articulated perhaps just to yourself. They could be expressed to a loved one who lives with you, or maybe your inner circle of friends, maybe virtually. Any way that you can articulate it, now is a wonderful time to develop that high maintenance quality of identifying your needs, having them, really truly having them, and expressing them in a way in which you intend to have them met. Nothing wrong with that. We all have needs at all times, but especially during a time like this, when so much is unknown, so much is being brought into focus that is uncomfortable for us to digest. In terms of politics, our everyday life, our lifestyles, the unknown, so much is being highlighted right now. So have your needs, express them, and intend on getting them met. That's a high maintenance quality that we should adopt right now at this time and at all times. Another consideration is one of the ego. Usually when we think of somebody who is high maintenance, we think they're really self-obsessed. They care only about themselves. Well, the ego has positive and negative connotations in our culture, mostly negative. I personally feel like the ego is present within our being in this particular iteration of our reality and our dimensionality because it serves a function. And perhaps that function is to simply overcome the ego. However, I think that the ego is more of a tool. And there's no better time than during the present moment to start to really engage the ego. The ego is a self-preservation mechanism, right? And yes, it might be related to the lower kind of chakras, the lower energy levels. That's not necessarily a bad thing. All of the energy levels work together to support the being as a whole, right? During this time, certainly our base chakras are engaged maybe more than our higher chakras, simply because we're asked to consider what it means to survive and to feel the weight of our survival and to ground down into the earth and really feel our humanity, right? We're working through issues of fear and the unknown and having real struggles with our mental health, many of us. So now is a wonderful time to use the ego for good, to engage the ego, and to really center in on the self, right? Who am I? What do I need? What do I feel my purpose is for being here? Let the ego serve you in helping to reveal some ideas about yourself in the world that can support you and that can aid you. Why not lean into that? It's there for you. It's a tool. So some high maintenance people might be egotistical or self-centered or selfish or obsessed with themselves. But during a time of need, that ego can really serve you. So why not utilize that? That doesn't mean that you should, embrace some of the more negative aspects of ego by perhaps stepping on others to highlight yourself. And you want to maintain of course, some awareness and how your ego is functioning, but utilize it. It's there. And it's definitely a tool that can benefit you during these times. Another idea is that a high maintenance person will always play the victim. And in almost all discourses, right, embracing an idea of yourself as a victim is really harmful to yourself, right? Because you want to always position yourself or work toward positioning yourself as an individual who's empowered and has control over her life. On the other hand, that's not necessarily entirely the truth, right? We don't always have control over our lives. We like to position ourselves as if we do because it gives us a sense of normalcy, a sense of stability, it gives us a sense of power. Those things aren't necessarily real for us in this existence. So when you think about the victim mentality, it, like the ego, also has a function that can serve us during a time of trial, such as during the pandemic era of coronavirus, of the COVID-19. So thinking about how you can use your victim mentality, which we all feel, let's be honest. Like for me, for example, I'm a mom to a young child, I'm homeschooling, I'm working 3 different jobs currently, and I'm feeling the stress of holding life together at times, right? And there are times when I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh my God, I just wish that I had another hour to rest. I'm so tired. I just can't get through the day. And that's not to put myself down, but I honestly feel that way sometimes. And the list goes on into infinity, right? Where you place yourself, even if it's just a modicum, into the victim role. Oftentimes that can derail us, right? It makes us feel like, oh, woe is me. You start to move into depression. You start to move into a feeling of anxiety. Those things can actually serve us, right? If they are present, don't talk them away. Don't dismiss those ideas. Try to embrace them. This idea of I'm a victim can actually serve you during a time when you do honestly feel like a victim, right? You have no control, seemingly, over what's happening in your world right now, what's happening to you being in lockdown. You honestly don't have control. And there is a sliver of victimization, a thread that runs through that experience that's really real. Sure, you can reframe it in all different ways to serve you better, and you should, but nevertheless, it's there. So look at it and deal with it. A high maintenance person might play the victim all the time, but sometimes that role can serve you. So like I said, reframe it and think about how it can serve you in your journey. Finally, this idea of a high maintenance person carrying a lot of challenge or a lot of insecurity about power structures and really raging up and fighting against authority figures. I mean, I think there's no better time to do that than the current present moment. No matter which side you're on, unfortunately, in a debate that's very polarized and probably shouldn't be, no matter which side you're on, you feel anxiety and you feel a lot of uncertainty and maybe anger toward people in positions of power. No matter who that is, I think we all can say we're unhappy or dissatisfied with certain ways that the government is being or is moving forward. So a high maintenance person is constantly, raging against the power structures. Well, let's bring that into our current life. Let's continue to ask questions about what is going on and continue to hold people in power responsible for how they're handling situations that have bearing on our personal lives and have bearing on the lives of those around us. So let's continue to put pressure on that. Let's continue to raise our voices and to stand up against things that we feel are unfair, unjust, things that we want to go differently, no matter whether that's in sync with what your neighbor thinks or not, right? A high maintenance person is going to always stand up for what she believes in and is going to make her voice apparent to those around her, because yeah, she might feel like she's entitled, and certainly there's a positive element to entitlement, and there's also certainly plenty of negative aspects to entitlement. But when there's an oppression and a repression going on, and when there is obviously something amok, right? Now is a fantastic time to utilize your high maintenance side and to really start to challenge the powers that be? So those are a couple reasons why engaging a high maintenance mentality during this time can serve you. There are certainly more complexities to consider, such as materialism or drama, that we can continue to unpack. But those are the essential functions that I think are really beneficial during this time right now. And I would love to hear your thoughts about whether you consider yourself high maintenance in this context and how you think it might be able to serve you or it might not serve you during these times. Thanks for watching.